Hello and welcome back to the show. So today we are going to talk about generational curses, what they are, what they mean, and how you break them. So the first thing I want to do is just talk a little bit about what a generational curse is, because the common trend that I noticed, the common theme, is when I talk about generational curses to people, they always, almost always, I shouldn't say always, almost always only believe that generational curses revolve around money and finances. That is not true. Generational curses are anything, any limited beliefs, any negative things, anything that is holding us back and keeping us from moving forward that we pass on to us, that was passed on, that we pass on to our children, that was passed on to us, that was probably passed on to our parents and their parents. And what happens is this belief system, this whatever it is that we believe, whether it is around money, whether it is about skin color, whether it's about hair, height, weight, intelligence, no matter what it is around, it is something that continues to be passed down from generation to generation to generation, and no one does anything differently because this is what the way it's always been done. This is what we've always been taught. This is what we learned, and this is what we believe. So when you have those generational curses and those limited belief systems, then you kind of get stuck, right? And the next generation never, if it's if we're passing it down to the next generation never deals with it because we didn't deal with it because it wasn't dealt with before us. And not only does it continue to be a generational curse, but we continue to pile on to that curse, making it a bigger and bigger, issue that is never dealt with. And then no one ever goes a different route. So when someone tries to go a different route, when someone tries to do something different, then that person gets a lot of pushback because now, oh, what are you doing? That's not the way you're supposed to do things. Why do you believe this? Right? So let me give you an example. And this is just a very broad example. And I am going to use money in this first example, just because I think it's something that's easily related that we can easily, sorry, can't talk today, that we can easily relate to, right? So let's say that I was taught I will never be a millionaire. It's not something that is possible for someone like me. And let's say that my parents taught me that, but let's say that they were also taught that. And let's say that I now have children. And my children are like, I'm going to be a millionaire one day. And I instantly hit back with, no, you're never going to be a millionaire. Be realistic. That's not something that you can do. People like you aren't millionaires. People like us do not become millionaires. And then now we have passed on that belief, that limited belief, that generational curse onto the next generation because we truly believe it. When looking at generational curses, we need to take it from a different point of view because I know a lot of times I personally have heard people say, oh, generational curses are not real. We're just looking at poor decisions that you made in life or bad decisions and bad habits that we're teaching our children. Is that not a generational curse? I mean, maybe I'm wrong. You can tell me in the comments or whatever, but I feel like if you are teaching your child something that you were taught because it was something that someone else was taught that they passed down to you. So if your grandparents taught your parents who taught you, and now you're teaching your children, you are passing on those bad habits, which is a generational curse. So call it what you will, call it a bad habit, call it a generational habit, call it generational curse, call it whatever you want to, but it is something that we are passing on to our children that have been passed on to us. And the only way to break it is to be the person who does something different. So for example, I'll go to money because money is the one that I think is easiest for everyone to understand. If you have bad spending habits because you were taught bad spending habits, because your parents were taught bad spending habits. And I'm not even talking about like spending on silly things and not spending things that are useful, but just like not saving and not taking calculated risk and just living from paycheck to paycheck could be a generational curse depending on how you look at it. Because if you are not trying to get ahead because you don't think that you're able to, because you don't think you're smart enough, that you don't think you have the skills, and then you teach your children, oh, you always have to stay here in life because this is where you are and this is who you are, and you can never get ahead. See, we are teaching them that they can't do better because we didn't do better, because we were taught that we couldn't do better, because our parents didn't do better because they were taught that too. That is a generational curse, because we have been all sold this lie that your station is in life is your station in life. That's your lot in life, and that you can't change that. Well, you can be the change maker. You have the option now to be the change maker yourself and also teach your children to be change makers. And that what I mean by that is we're all taught that in order to have a happy life, you have to go to work 40 plus hours a week. You have to be working in a corporate setting. You have to do A, B, C, D, and E. You work all these hours, 40 plus hours a week, to get 2 to 3 weeks of vacation a year that you have to request just to possibly be denied because it doesn't fit their agenda. And that's what you teach your children. Instead of saying, you know what, you can do something different. You can be whatever you want to be. You can have your own business. You can work and be the boss. You can be the CEO. You can be the decision maker. We don't teach our children this because we were taught that we weren't able, that we shouldn't be able to do this. And that is where the generational curse lies. Just like we teach our children that beauty is a certain standard. And if you don't meet these standards, then we punish you. And then or we tell you, oh, you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to be this skinny, you have to look this way, your hair has to look a certain way, your face has to look a certain way. And then we pass those same beliefs on to our children. And then they start believing that they are not good enough. And they walk around carrying that feeling of not good enough, just like we carried that feeling of not good enough, just like our parents carried that feeling of not good enough. That is, again, another example of a generational curse. We all have been sold the story that we are not good enough. And so we pass the story that you are not good enough because you do not meet these standards. And instead of breaking it, we just continue to do it. And that's kind of where the whole point of a generational curse is. Instead of doing something different, we continue to say, you can't do this because, and this is why. I was taught the same thing, and this is why. And then we were told, you can't do this because I was taught the same thing, and this is why. You can't do this because of this. You know, instead of being the person who gets of course, you're going to get pushback. You're going to get a lot of probably ugliness, a lot of opposition. Why are you doing this? This is not how you do things. That's okay. That's what the generational curse breaker does. They do things differently. They take a different route. They do the opposite of what they were taught, or the opposite of what everybody is doing, the opposite of what is expected of them. And they become the person who changes the game, who makes the narrative something new, something different. As we go through life and we learn things and we see some truths, the more that you start to explore and learn about yourself and just learn about the world and spirituality and just really deepen your own belief systems, the more that you will start to be aware of the generational curses. And the more that you are aware of them, the more that you are able to see them and recognize them and identify them, the easier it is to break them. But that does not mean that it is easy, because as I said, everyone in your life is going to push against, because you are now doing something that no one's ever done before. You are now doing something that looks completely foreign to everyone, and no one understands why you're doing it, because this isn't right. Continue to push forward, continue to move forward, continue to do those things, continue to be the person who goes against the grain and does whatever is not expected of you, because that's the only way to break the generational curses, is to do the things that you were told that you weren't going to be able to do. Do the things that you were told that you're not going to be able to accomplish, because you can truly accomplish them, and you can do all of those things. You can become whoever you want to be. You can change your story, you can change the narrative, and then you can teach your children to change the narrative. And that means that moving forward, the story is now different. That curse has been broken. And now instead of a curse, you have a legacy. So be the generational curse breaker and be the legacy builder and continue to move forward. We are definitely going to have some more segments on generational curse breaking. We're going to have some experts on in the future. So stay tuned and let me know how you feel about this episode. Until next time, take care of yourselves.